I'm going to tell you today about the journey that I took, not like that you have to take, in order to build a multi-million-dollar virtual agency. We started off as a virtual agency. We are still a virtual agency. Before it was actually cool to be a virtual agency. And these are the steps that we took. This is the steps that I took. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no such thing really as a virtual agency back in 2012, 2013. So I'm going to take you through those steps here today. Hopefully you can get some value from it and figure out a way to help scale and grow your agency to new levels as well. So a couple of facts here. Did you guys realize that there's over 433,000 agencies in the world? Now I say digital advertising agencies here. These are actually all marketing agencies. 433,000. If you actually extrapolate that out just to the US alone, there's well over 52,000 agencies. So you are not alone in doing what you're doing here by any stretch. However, represents an opportunity, I think, for all of us, which I'm going to be talking about here in just a minute. The interesting thing is that this is a highly fragmented, and the word unconsolidated industry is absolutely the case. And I think everyone here either has, you can say unconsolidated by niches, by specialties, but the big agencies which have multi-channel, multi-service, that's been replaced by people that are in this room in the last 10 years, which is really pretty amazing. And the explosion, as you saw, that growth is pretty astounding. Now, the interesting part is that if you actually break down those agencies, those 52,000 agencies, and you can actually see the growth here from 2015 to 2023, the vast majority of the agencies that are out there are under 50 employees, 50 FTEs. Now, FTEs is all relative because I know a lot of you guys use contractors. We use FTEs, plus we use contractors because we're international. All our folks in the US are actually employees. But the general distribution is such that 91% of all agencies, of those 52,000, of those 433,000, are under 50 people. And even more impressive, or more important, is that nearly a third are under 10 people. So by a show of hands here, how many folks here have an agency that's under 10 people total? All right. How many are under 50? Got it. How many are over 50? One, couple, two. Pretty representative, right? So you're in the right place. Now, this represents a great opportunity for agencies that are smaller. But I think there's a reason why most agencies are under 50 employees, because after that little magical point, over there, you can see 61%. Something really happens at that 50 mark, that 40 to 50 mark, where you get in like 40 or 50 FTEs, shit gets really freaking hard. All of a sudden, you've got layers. It's not just you going to your direct reports anymore, right? It's you've got now a leadership team, and then you've got middle management, and you've got managers over the frontline people. Like, it gets complex. And at that point, most agencies, and we got to this point in my story here today of how we built a multi-million-dollar virtual agency, we hit that point and we hit the wall. We hit the ceiling. We couldn't figure out how to actually get to that next level. And the problem is that there was so many things going on, we had to reinvent ourselves. So we looked at 3 different options. Once you reach that point, and I'm sure all of you have maybe even considered one of 3 of these options here, and we considered all 3 of them as well. When you get to that number, when shit starts getting hard, you got 3 choices. You either do this one, sell it, take one of those calls from one of those private equity groups. Todd, our boy at Potomac Capital, I can get you 7, 8x. You know, it's really tempting because at 50, you're all of a sudden a business owner. You're no longer really just a solopreneur. You're now trying to figure out how to run a business. And the secondary part of that business is the work that you're doing. You then become an administrator. You then become a CEO, a founder, somebody who's actually establishing SOPs and vision and doing all the traction stuff if you haven't done all that already. But it's really tempting, to take one of those calls and to actually sell. We started taking those calls, and I'll tell you that story in just a second. Second choice, you blow the fucking thing up. Which, I just saw a Hormozi video. I'm a huge Alex Hormozi fan. The other day, he said, at a certain point, you've grown a business to a certain level. You realize you reached a certain scale that in order to get to the next level, you have to destroy everything that you just built. For all of us, for all of our businesses, that's a really hard thing. That's like killing your child. It's like you've built this thing. You've gotten it to this level. And like, I can't get past this point. The businesses that actually reinvigorate and reinvent themselves and blow the whole thing up and start from scratch, which is what we did in 2023, which I'll show you in just a second, are the ones that actually get to that next level. Now, there's a third choice. Third choice is you merge. You find other agencies that are maybe in your space. Remember, highly fragmented. Hopefully it's a little bit more organized than these guys in the GIF. The point is there's another option here. It's not just go it alone. It's not just sell to a private equity group. It's not just sell to a strategic. Maybe find another agency that actually wants to do the same thing that you want to do. Maybe has the same sort of goals. Maybe you can get there a little bit faster, a little bit easier. Maybe you can do it together as opposed to it being you that's making all the decisions. Now, when I talk about industries and an unconsolidated industry, this has happened in a lot of industries. I mean, let's think about Home Depot, obviously the home improvement space. Like the local hardware store, consolidated now into Home Depot and to Lowe's. Staples, there used to be a stationery store at every corner. It was like the first job I worked when I was in high school. A local stationery store. That got replaced by Staples and Office Depot. The meat industry, there's 4 big manufacturers. I could go on and on and on here. Sephora, has everybody seen, like I have a guy in my Vistage group who builds Sephoras. Like that's one of his big clients. Like they're everywhere. The local makeup, the local beauty store is being replaced by these mega stores. Think about the social platforms. How many social platforms were there before Meta? There's really one now. Who's on MySpace anymore? Anyone? Friendster? Jason. Still is. Only guy. Same thing with Google. Like think about all the search engines that we used to have. There's consolidation. In the agency space right now, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for consolidation. So think about that for a second. Now, the interesting thing about agencies, and I don't know if y'all have gotten these phone calls, but private equity, strategics, other folks who are looking to make money in the space are very interested in what you guys are doing in this room. How many people get like an email or so a week from somebody saying, hey, you want to sell your agency for whatever I can give you 10x. Yeah, we got a bunch of hands here. If you haven't gotten them, then they're in your spam folder. Just check your spam folder. Trust me, they are there. These guys are everywhere. Now, sometimes I talk with them, sometimes I don't. If they're interesting, I do talk with them because I always want to see like what's in the market. So I talk to at least one private equity group every single week just to sort of keep my finger on the pulse. And they, even though this graphic right here was created by my CFO, and if we ever show him, he's going to be actually kind of pissed because he hates averages. But for the sake of argument, we're going to show sort of averages of like what you can get for your agency that's out there in the market. Obviously, Jason knows this stuff extremely well. But this is the value expansion principle when it comes to most businesses, but definitely in the digital marketing and in the agency space, is that startup, high growth, high risk, high growth, lower risk, and then low growth, low risk. And what the valuations on all these really include. And I'm going to show some examples here, 3 of which actually happened to us. And I'll tell you the reason why we said no. So if you are somewhere between, let's say, 300K and 2 million in EBITDA, that is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. I always have to remember what those are. EBITDA. Basically, everything you make after like all your add backs as an owner, so basically it's your net operating income, right? This is the multiples. So in very rough terms, these are very rough estimates, all right? If you're between 300K and maybe 2 million, you might get like a 2 to 7 or maybe a 10x on that if you were purchased by a private equity group, which might be anywhere between 600K and 13 million. Somewhere in that range. I know for a fact that we were at 1.7 2 years ago. We got 3 offers, 12.5, 13.5, and 14. So I know exactly what those numbers are. Now, we didn't go through the whole entire due diligence process, and knowing private equity, they probably would have chopped it down. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's somewhere between 10 and 12, right? 80% cash at close, pretty damn good offer. I was like, wow. Let me do the math here. That's like $8-9 million. It's like, holy crap, I could get out of this. This was like right after like the iOS 14 update. Any of you guys run Meta ads? I was like, holy shit, I can't believe they're gonna pay me and they're gonna go into this freaking nightmare. Point was, is I said no. And I'll tell you why in a second. Now, what gets really interesting is multiples up here. And I know Jason goes through this, and I don't want to steal his thunder. He's got a multiplier that shows a lot of this, but these are rough figures. By the way, my CFO is a former M&A guy at KPMG, so he kind of knows what he's talking about. So this is his chart, not mine, so I'm going to blame him. So if you're about between the $3 to $5 million EBITDA range, you might be able to get like an 8 to 12 multiple, maybe probably a 10. I have a friend of mine that just got 2 million EBITDA, a 12 multiple, $24 million he sold his agency for. Now, all of that was based upon value, perception in the market, a lot of factors that I'm not even going into here. I'm just giving you rough numbers. But between that 3 and 5 million EBITDA mark, all of a sudden things get really interesting. Our goal personally for Tier 11 is 5 million EBITDA, thereabouts, but we don't really care about the EBITDA. We care about the valuation. 50 million valuation by 2025. That's what we want. That's step one. Then we bring in private equity, and then we go to the next level. Next level gets even more interesting. Let's say you're at 15 to 20 million in EBITDA. You're doing pretty well. Like, that's a business that you could sell, or you could just continue to enjoy the cash flow. And then that valuation might be anywhere between 200 and maybe even 600 million, 400 million, 500 million, somewhere in that range. The numbers get ridiculous. This value expansion principle is absolutely accurate. Right now, private equity is still looking actively to invest. It is not the market, even though interest rates are higher. The interest rates don't really matter, especially on the lower end here. These are the valuations that I'm seeing right now. And then if you really want to get ridiculous, like with the big guys of the world, like the Power Digitals of the world, the Tenuities of the world, this is what they're going for. They're way advanced to that. But notice that your valuation is higher, but the growth is lower. The interesting part is that this ladder, this valuation expansion principle, is very real. And like I said, we talk to these groups every single day or every single week about how we might be able to position ourselves. Because I don't want to be doing this for the next 10 years. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, but I do want an exit strategy. And let me tell you why I want an exit strategy. Now, 400 million, great. 500 million, 600 million. I know the guys pretty well. They're going for a $3 billion valuation. Will they get there? I have no idea. They're overpaying for a lot of smaller agencies right now. Love them. They're a strategic partner of ours. Great. This is the advice that I got about 2 years ago after I got the 3 offers. Okay? I'm going to, names shall remain nameless, but you might be able to figure this out. Name grew X agency to a $5 million EBITDA, sold for 8x, got a 70-30 split, 30 million at close, 10 million earnout, then sold for 20x on 30 million EBITDA for 600 million. That owner made $90 million. The best part of it was this. He created 29 millionaires. So when we got our 3 offers, I thought to myself, all right, that's cool. Me and my wife are kind of in good standing, maybe 8, 9 million, taxes, figure out a way to, all right, maybe I got 5 million left. I got 5 million, that's pretty good. My employees would have gotten maybe, 40, 50,000, maybe 100 grand, maybe. It seemed empty to me because two things. I realized that I would be wealthy, but then I'd have no one to play golf with. But secondly, I hadn't taken everybody that got me there on the same ride. Like, I wanted to bring people along. I wanted my leadership team to become millionaires. I wanted my leadership, the team that I've fought with the last 10 years, I wanted them to experience the same thing. Yeah, I would have made more than them, that's fine. But this guy created 29 millionaires. When they sold the second time, 102 people got checks, big checks. That's bringing along an entire almost company. Like, think of how many lives you're impacting with that sort of thing. And you can do it by doing the right way, by just doing what we're doing and figuring this stuff out. So what I realized is that Tier 11 then became not all about me. It became about me and my team. And my team and I building something great, doing something that other digital marketing agencies had never done before. We felt like when we got the offers that we did 2 years ago, we had unfinished businesses. We had not figured out attrition. We had not figured out data. We had not figured out how multi-channel works. We had not figured out all these things. I'm like, even though I would have been rich, I would have been pissed off because I never figured it out. And so what we decided then, and I got my leadership team on board with it, I was like, I could be rich right now, or I could bring you all along. What do you want? They're like, hell yeah, let's go for the big one. Let's go for the valuation. Let's be the next Tenuity. Let's be the next Power Digital. Let's build it. And so that's what we decided. So my goal here today is to talk to you folks about getting from where you're at right now, if you're a 6-figure, maybe low 7-figure business, to multi-7 figures, that maybe possibly your business, you might actually want to come along on that ride with what we're trying to do. There's my soft pitch to you guys. Because that's one hell of a ride. That's generational wealth. And then we all together, collectively, we have this vision of us as our leadership team all partying our asses off on a boat on Lake Tahoe. I don't know why that's the thing, but it's like we're all freaking millionaires because we all got checks. And like, that's my goal. And I want to be able to do that. And maybe some of you in this room might want to come along. And that's the reason why I'm doing the presentation here today, to help you get to that point. But if you don't want to talk about maybe if you want to come along and join what we're trying to do, I'd be happy to talk. So let's get into the presentation here today. So this is us. You guys probably have heard a little bit about Tier 11. We help purpose-driven brands achieve their vision. We have 80-plus marketing experts all from around the world. That actually does include some white label partners and some other partners that we have in foreign countries. You probably heard this little podcast here. It just so happens to be the top 0.5% of all podcasts on the planet, which is kind of crazy to me. But yeah, one of the top marketing podcasts. But it doesn't really matter. It's all about you all here today. What we believe in is these 4 things. And this is the 4 core principles of what makes Tier 11 Tier 11. We believe that there's 4 key components to digital marketing success: ad creative, paid traffic, conversion rate optimization, and first-party data. That last yellow circle, probably the most important circle out of all, because all the other 3 really don't matter unless you can figure that one out. We call it the conversion engine. Check out this graphic that one of my graphic designers did. So really, it is creative, paid traffic, but looped together by data. Everyone talks about like making data-driven decisions using AI. It's all bullshit, really. All the metrics in which I think we as marketers used to measure success on are now dead. We have a new marketing expression called ROAS sucks, because it actually does, because it can be manipulated by individual platforms, and you guys know exactly what you're talking about, right? You go on a Facebook, it says 600% ROAS. You look at Google, 800% ROAS on Google Performance Max. Your customer says, I lost money last week. How is that possible? Well, we've got a data partnership with a little company called Wicked Reports, the second largest shareholder, and we're about to change all that by using predictive metrics as opposed to trailing metrics in order to figure out where in your channels, where you should be spending what when. And that's the data component. We've become more of a data company than we have been a media, conversion rate optimization, and creative company. All of those things we do really well. You gotta have that, but you have to have the data in order for it all to work. So let's take a little trip down memory lane. Let's go back into 2015. I'm basically going to show you how we got from a point in time to a specific point in time, not where we are today. But back in 2015, we were known as a Facebook ad agency. So in 2013, 2014, there were 3 Facebook ad agencies on the planet. It was me, Kurt Molly, and some other guy. And that was basically it. It was the first Facebook ad agency. We were very popular. It was a very popular platform at that point in time, but it was easy. All of our customers spend on Facebook, and that's the only place they spend. Now all of our customers spend on multiple platforms. We don't know where the hell it's coming from unless we know where the data is. So we started off as a Facebook ads agency. 2015, after being completely broke in 2012, by the way, with 0 sales, we hit 307,000 sales in 2015, which was a pretty good year. I was pretty happy with that. I could actually take a salary for the first time. I could pay the health insurance, which was my goal in starting Tier 11. It's not to become a multi-million-dollar agency, it was to pay the frickin' health insurance. So I could pay the health insurance. 2020, we hit just shy of 5 million. I'm kind of pissed that we didn't hit 5 million that year, but I actually took that from my tax return. So you know it's actually accurate, just shy of 5 million. But anyway, it was 2,000% growth in 5 years. So how did we do it? Well, we did it with a lot of things, but there were 3 big steps, and that's what we're going to discuss here today. So those 3 steps are as follows. I think Jack did a really good job today talking about how to attract A players. I would 100% agree. This is the key to anything in success in business, is getting the right people on the bus and in the right seats on the bus. If you've ever read Good to Great, if you haven't, you should read it. The point is that's the key for everything for us right now, and it still is to this day. Our processes might have changed slightly, but I'll give you the processes that we used back in 2015 all the way to 2019. This was always the question for me. It's like, why can't I find other people just like me? When I started Tier 11, I was like, well, I'm pretty good at client management, pretty good media buyer, I'm pretty good at creative, I'm pretty good at data, I'm pretty good at, you name it, copywriting. Why can't I just find like a unicorn like me? I found one, but I could never really find anybody else. But the question, I was asking the wrong question. Not how to replace me, but actually the real answer to that question is this one, which is find people that are better than you. Better than you in the specific areas. I definitely agree with the generalist principle, for sure. But in our space, I find that you can't have somebody who's great at client management, great media buyer, great at creative, great at data, great at 30,000-foot view, great at email, great at funnels. That person just doesn't exist. You know what that person is? An agency founder, probably. Okay? So find as many of those skills as you can, for sure, but what we found is that if you can find people that are better than you, specifically in media buying, and this is back in 2015, but also that are complementary to you, not meaning that they suck up to you, but you guys are all the boss everyone's always going to suck up to you. I mean, come on. Complementary with an I as opposed to E. But complementary to your skills. Find somebody who's better at data and media buying than you. Maybe find somebody who's a little bit better at Google pay-per-click than you are versus Meta. Like, these are the keys to success when it comes to hiring the right types of folks. So those two principles we still live by to this very day. This is what our org chart looked like in 2015. It's pretty lean. That was me. I'm the guy at the top. Pretty good. Had a VA. Funny thing is, that VA is still actually with us 15 years later, believe it or not. She's actually on our marketing team. This was our org chart in 2020. So slightly more complex. This is, you can sort of figure it out. It's about 30, 40 people, thereabouts. I've got a leadership team. I've got middle management. I've got sort of sub-middle managers. I've got rank and file. And we started to build this whole thing out because I realized, well, I can't do it on my own. I need people that are complementary to my skills. Somebody who actually knows how to read the books and interpret them and do the bookkeeping as opposed to me doing all the Excel spreadsheets. Somebody that actually does the sales. Jason talked about this, I think, in his opening presentation. Novel idea. Not having the agency owner on every single sales call. Maybe coming in every now and then just to help close the sale or just to get the dopamine surge when they actually do sign on the dotted line. Starting to outsource and figure out ways in which to duplicate yourself. And I said this in the group that was in the other room earlier today. There is somebody out there that loves to do all the shit that you hate doing. There is somebody there. Some sick bastard who loves to do client services. That person exists. We just hired 3 of them. They're very expensive, but we hired them. I now have a COO who runs the entire operation. I basically am the CEO, the visionary. We have the visionary integrator thing going. If you guys have read Traction and Rocket Fuel, we're big believers in that. But that's how the organization looked then. The big thing was we had to figure out our core values. Like we talked about core values, I think, earlier today. I think Jack talked about it. It was really good on that. We did it slightly differently. So we figured out, all right, who's the ideal person? That person is actually still with us to this day. This is how you figure out your core values so that you can hire the right people. Get your best person. You and your leadership team, or you and maybe your one guy, or whoever it is, get yourselves in a room and write down every one of the key characteristics that they have. And say, if I could duplicate that person, how effective would my business be? And that person actually is now my VP of operations, Angela Ponsford. And we wrote down emotional intelligence, humble, hungry, and had a marketing IQ. At that point in our growth, these were the 4 core values that we hired for, we promoted for, we trained for, and we made sure that we hired no matter what. We always got all 4. Not 3 out of 4, not 2 out of 4, all 4. And here's how we did it. So our hiring process, which is not altogether dissimilar today, just a slightly different process than how we did it back in 2015 into 2019. Our hiring process looked like this. First off, there's an online application. Second is an account walkthrough. Third, there is the simulator. Fourth, there's interview number 1. Fifth, interview 2. Interview 3. Then they become an ads manager. This is for a media buyer, for example. Then only after that point in time do they become a media buyer. Like those are 8 steps. This is for hiring a media buyer. Like every position, you should have at least these 8 steps, in my opinion. Now, this takes 1 to 3 months. It doesn't necessarily mean you're hiring over 1 to 3 months. The whole process takes 1 to 3 months. I'll take you through it in just a second here. We figured this out through trial and error. Because we're a virtual agency, you have to be able to screen, because we get, for one individual job we just hired for, we got 600 applicants. For another job that we just hired for, we got 2,000 applicants. You need automation, you need processes, especially if you're creating a company culture, if you've got good Glassdoor ratings like Jack said, if you really do focus on core values, you have a strong vision, you're going to get a lot of applicants. You're going to get people that are going to work for you. So we set all this up through a system called Trello, which we'll get to in just a second, and where they progress all the way through. This was all done through one One VA did this, I think $500 a month, in order to monitor all the entire process, created an SOP for it. So as far as hiring, we're big believers and still are in show me, don't tell me. Show me, don't tell me. In the previous world, before I got fired from the corporate world, not once, but twice, I was a sales manager, a sales director for a Fortune 500 company. I've probably interviewed over 3,000 sales applicants, probably hired 400 people. So I know everybody pretty much lies on their resume, especially salespeople. So, show me, don't tell me. The listing itself, though, is the key. So remember, show me, don't tell me, because you're going to see that in our hiring process. Appeal to their desires. Do not make it a help wanted ad. Jack said it great. You know, who cares? Like, people only really care about themselves. They're like, what's in it for me? You know, what do you want? What is it that they will get for working for you, but also overlaps with what you want for your business? That's where the magic happens. They want this, you want this. That's called a match. But you have to put their desires almost above yours in so many ways. Yeah, and still the vision and everything else that goes along with it, because people mostly care about themselves. So write your job posting as if you're writing a sales ad, like an ad for Facebook. The listing itself, we still do this to this day, is we've somewhat changed our core values just a bit. Some of our core values now include precision. So we would always include inside the listing in the bottom line or the second to last line, what's your favorite food? If they did not put in what their favorite food was, in this case, Angela, who's, like I said, she's our VP of operations, or VP of production, it was sauerkraut. But immediately, that's something that the VA looks for. Did they put in their favorite food? No. No attention to detail. You're out. Second, sometimes we would even put in typos. Tell me what the 3 typos are in the first 4 paragraphs of this job listing. Once again, another attention to detail. If they missed that one, they're out. Once again, the VA is monitoring this all the way through in the Trello process. Find the typo in the job opening. There might be more than one. And then we have them go through, this is where the show me, don't tell me comes in. We go through an online application. So this is what we call the quiz. We still do this for all of our applicants right now. Like I said, this is one for media buyer. And where we ask them like their aptitude. How much do they actually know about, in this case, because this is like 2015, 2016, how much do they know about the Facebook ad platform? Figure it out. It's a pass-fail. Depending on how many questions they get right, they either go to the next step or they get a, sorry, you don't qualify, thanks for applying. I believe our score now is an 85 or above. So this individual barely made it and got to that next step, got a grade of 86. So show me, don't tell me. If they get to that step, then, and this is another case, this is once again, this is for a media buyer, whatever you're hiring for, let's say it's a web developer, a web designer, shoot me a video. Shoot me a walkthrough video. Maybe you're hiring a CRO person. Give them a landing page and say, hey, what's wrong with this landing page? Tell me like what your analysis would be of it. In no more than, I believe this is a 7-minute video. We then narrowed it down to 5 minutes. If it's more than 5 minutes, you're out. Actually, we did hire one guy who did a 7-minute video, and now he's our director of HR. So you can break the rules every now and then if they're really, really, really good. But once again, another way, show me, don't tell me. No one has talked to these people as of yet. Nobody, zero, nada. The next step, if they make it to that, then they get another email from the VA. This is all automated through Trello, what we call the simulator. Give me 5 different scenarios, 4 different scenarios, I believe now, of here is the problem with the client, here's all the data, tell me what the solution is, how you would solve it. And then they would do a no more than, I think this is now a 7-minute video. Once again, you're narrowing this down. This is going from hundreds of applicants, maybe down to a handful. This is where the manager now starts to get involved. The hiring manager starts looking at these videos. Okay? So this guy, I don't think he actually got the job. Hopefully he's not in the room here. anywhere. But anyway, he didn't do such a good job. He didn't get hired. So once again, no one's even talked to these people yet. Like, this is the whole process. Once you get through that, you pass the sim, you've already gone through all of those steps. Then you go to interview 1, hiring manager, interview 2, their manager, and interview 3, yours truly. If they get through that gauntlet, which we've done every hire this way, believe it or not, congratulations, you're hired. Sort of. Because we tell them, we say, listen, this is about a match between what you want and what we want. So for the next 90 days, we're going to make sure it's the right match for you. The worst thing in the world that we can do is you work for Tier 11 and you realize it's a bad match for you. And we're setting you up for failure, so we want to save you that. So we're going to work together, and we're going to pay you for the next 90 days. But at the end of 90 days, then you get the formal job. Technically, they're on the payroll. Very few people fail at this point. I can't think of anyone in the last 3 years that has not become a full-time employee, or at least a contractor because of it. Because they start working with the team. They start working alongside the team on accounts. We start bringing them in. We give them our internal and external training. We used to do all the training from Digital Marketer through. Once again, this is all on a Trello board. That's all, and then we did change this over to Asana. Now we're on Jira and another platform now. But we track everything as far as their internal and external training goes. As a part of our foot in the door for any new client, we have altered this just a bit. We do a strategic account plan, which we charge the client anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 to do an assessment of their ad accounts, and then we produce this report. We actually have the hire at this point do these analyses as part of our sales process. Worked out great. And they're coached by their direct report. It also helped us to close sales. So we had them starting to do sort of these lower level sort of strategic account plan activities. And then we put them on what's referred to as a training wheels account. So I worked out this deal with Ryan Dice over at Digital Marketer. I said, dude, any businesses that you want, low-priced ads managers or media buyers on, send them my way. I'll only charge you like a couple $100. Or in most cases, like nothing, because he's kind of cheap. But anyway, most cases, what we would do is we would do lower level accounts. No damage done here. He realized he was getting some media buying. You can do this with anybody. It was just Ryan just so happened to be the guy that I knew that had a bunch of different businesses, was looking for media buyers at all times. So he put him on these training wheels accounts. But he also realized, hey, I'm paying cheap here. But it was our way of, this is how I vet my people, but you get some benefit as well. Some we charged, some we didn't. Finally, at that point, now, it was supposed to say, now you're hired with actual real customer accounts. So if you go through this whole process, and I think that this is the reason why this is step number 1, is because it's so vitally important. You've got 8 steps here. It takes 1 to 3 months. Now, we do things slightly differently now. We do it through a couple of different platforms, but all the principles basically stay the same. Next step is use simple software and tools. We used to use everything to manage all of our client accounts through our inbox. That does not work. This is how we do it now. And you guys have probably seen some of these tools. Slack, Trello, Tetra, Zoom, and then right in the center of it all is Google Drive. What we found at this level, all you really need is these 4. Some of the ones that we now use are a little bit more flexible, but what we got with all of these is flexibility. You can customize them. They're task-driven. They're super easy to use. I think you all use them. Obviously, as a virtual agency, you absolutely need Zoom. And because if your peeps aren't actually using any of these tools, we made sure that we were monitoring their usage. You're screwed. Tetra for us was absolutely instrumental in getting us from a couple of 100,000 a year in sales to millions. We then went on to Asana, and then we went on to Jira for more, Scrum, Agile Scrum methodology now that we're a larger size. Y'all probably use Slack. I will say, first off, the mobile app is great. You guys will probably all use it. How many people here use Slack? Pretty much everybody in the room. Yeah. I would say with a virtual agency, probably the most important thing about Slack is not only is to keep things light and to have channels that allow sort of water cooler talk. We have a fun channel. We have an announcements channel. We have You Are an Awesome channel, which includes like, hey, call out some of our 5 core values. People are able to give each other like attaboys. We do like this water cooler topic every now and then. It's a great way of managing your team, but also keeping morale up. I feel like I know everybody inside the entire agency just through Slack. And one of the most underutilized and most important and vital parts to it is I don't think we could exist as an organization unless we used emojis. Like the emoji is like the best invention for written communication, I think, ever. Because it allows you to be able to relay that nonverbal thing that you don't have control over when you're running a virtual agency. The second part of it that we use a lot, especially, like, once again, we're in over 30 countries. We've got 80 plus people. We use Slack huddles all the time. I used one just this morning with one of our CSOs. Last but not least, we use Trello for all of this, all our boards. We did migrate over to Asana and then went over to Jira, but I think if you're around the size that we were at this point, Trello is a great tool. I can't tell you how helpful it was for us. This one here, I believe this is for our creative team. This is all the creative projects that we have going on at any particular point in time. We just monitor it all through. Everything sort of flows through Trello. Our content map, we use 6 different stages of awareness. And we measure all that through Trello, as well as, on this one, I believe, this is the training for one of our new hires. We measure all our training, how they progress. It's all done sort of through an automation. Like I said, Trello's come a hell of a long way since it first started years ago. We migrated to it. We stayed on it for probably about 5 years. And then last but not least, we also use it just for generalized info and for like marketing materials, for things that we need as far as our vision, our core values, team meetings, leadership uses it. It's a great tool. Last but not least, the last tool that we use, what we now use a number of different tools for this, is like you need a place for your SOPs. So SOPs we put into Tetra, which is another great tool. Everything works horizontally along the top, and then all the tasks that are out of scope are then sort of brought back into the software itself. You can see here. And then last but not least, Zoom, which is absolutely essential for everything that we do. The last part of this, I know I'm just about at time, is create systems. A great man, or not so great man, who was my mentor way back in 2013, 2014, he says, your business is impossible to scale. I said, that's interesting, because there's never been like a virtual agency in 2012, 2013. But then I read this book called The Checklist Manifesto. And I realized that the thing that we were missing was checklists, was SOPs that we could then plug back into Tetra. And I realized that checklists actually ran just about everything in the world, from building skyscrapers to flying airplanes, flying 747s, to surgery. The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande was one of the best books I think I ever read that helped us scale from 6 figures to multi-7 figures. So we started creating checklists for everything. Every process, everything that was in my head, everything that I knew that I had to teach to other people. Ultimately, you hire the right types of people, and then they follow the processes, but they have to be able to follow it in a stepwise manner. So what do checklists give you? They give you a lot of different things. First off is control, consistency, precision, duplicability, which is one of my favorite words. I don't even know if it's an actual word, meaning you can duplication. But where do you start? Well, the big thing with the checklists, and if you folks have not done them for every single process, you have to start somewhere. So Journey of 1,000 Miles definitely does begin with the first step. But from what we have found is that the first thing you do is, as you're doing it, you write everything down or you do a video on it. As you're actually doing it, that then creates the SOPs. We're creating a new SOP for one of the new companies that we just acquired. And everything is video, and then it's then transcribed. You can now do this very easily inside AI. Checklists are actually super easy to do now. Then you revise and edit, and then you repeat until it's perfect. Now, where do you put it all? We started with obviously with Tetra as the place where we started, but we have migrated over to different systems over the course of time. We now keep everything in Jira, which is another software which we now use, which I think is probably even better than a lot of the ones that we used way back then. But that's getting us to the next level. It's not what we got from a couple of 100,000 in revenue to a few million. Big tip here is, in order to create checklists and SOPs, get your top people to write them for you. Make it a part of what they do. As they do something cool, write it down and then have a repository for the SOP. It's absolutely key. When I was doing them all on my own, it wasn't getting done. As soon as my people started to do it, and it was a part of their job, it's actually in their job description to create and revise and improve our SOPs for the next guy and also the next gal. And for when they're a manager and they need to teach it to those guys and gals, all of a sudden we started getting 100% compliance. Use any sort of sharing doc. It doesn't really matter what it is. Could be Google Drive, could be Google, could be Tetra, could be Jira, could be anything. And then assign, get volunteers to update, or just make it a part of their job description, which is what we do. So in review, there's 3 steps here. So attract A players, use simple software and tools, and then last but not least, create systems. And if you're interested in coming along for the ride, where we create generational wealth as our next stage of the evolution of creating what we feel will be a revolutionary digital marketing agency, soon to be coming to a theater near you, email me at Ralph at Tier 11.